The ships appeared at exactly 9 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. One moment the sky was clear. The next moment, massive shadows fell across every major city on Earth. They were enormous, easily the size of small mountains, and they hung in the air like impossible monuments to alien engineering. In Seoul, Minho was streaming his morning gaming session when his chat exploded with messages. Someone posted a screenshot of the sky outside. He walked to his window, energy drink in hand, and stared up at the massive vessel hovering above the city. His first words, broadcast to 300,000 viewers, were simple. Wow, that's new. Within minutes, every screen on Earth displayed the same message. It came in every language simultaneously, the translation perfect and immediate. A face appeared, vaguely humanoid but wrong in subtle ways. The eyes were too large, the skin had a faint purple tint, and the mouth moved just slightly out of sync with the words. "People of Earth," the alien said. His voice was deep and carried an edge of absolute authority. "I am Commander Valth of the vast Dominion. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. You have 24 hours to surrender all military forces and governmental authority. Resistance is futile. Your weapons are primitive. Your defenses are meaningless. Submit or face complete annihilation." The message ended. The ships remained, silent and waiting. For about 30 seconds, the world held its breath. Then the internet woke up. Minho refreshed his social media feed and watched it explode in real time. Someone had already created a meme using Commander Valth's face with the caption, "When you're trying to be scary, but you look like a purple thumb." Another showed the mothership with arrows pointing at its design flaws, comparing it to a parking garage that had sex with a refrigerator. He started laughing. He couldn't help it. The alien had been so serious, so dramatic, and humanity's immediate response was to roast him mercilessly. "Chat," Minho said, turning back to his camera. "I think we're all going to die, but at least we're going to die with good memes." His viewer count jumped to 1 million. Across the city, Dr. Jiwon Park stood in her laboratory at Seoul National University, watching the same broadcast on her computer screen. Unlike most people, she wasn't looking at Commander Valth's face. She was studying the background of the transmission, the glimpse of the alien bridge visible behind him. There were screens, control panels, and something that caught her eye. A flicker. Brief, barely noticeable, but there. Some kind of energy field visible in the background had pulsed for just a fraction of a second. She rewound the footage and watched it again. There it was. A pattern. She pulled up her analysis software and began running frequency calculations. If that was their shield technology, and if it flickered at a regular interval, then maybe it had a weakness. Her phone buzzed with messages from friends and family. "Are you okay? Did you see the ships? What should we do?" She ignored them all and kept working. At Osan Air Base, Lieutenant Hyon sat in the ready room with his squadron. They were supposed to be on high alert, prepared for immediate deployment. Instead, most of them were on their phones, scrolling through the flood of invasion content. "Hey, check this out," one pilot said, holding up his screen. It showed a video of someone in New York who had somehow projected a massive emoji onto the bottom of the mothership hovering over Manhattan. The middle finger emoji, specifically, rendered in lights bright enough to be seen from blocks away. The room erupted in laughter. "We should do that here," another pilot suggested. Hyon wanted to tell them to focus, to take this seriously, but he couldn't. He had watched Commander Valth's ultimatum 3 times now, and each time it felt less real. The alien sounded like a corporate manager giving a presentation about quarterly earnings. The threat of annihilation delivered with the emotional weight of a weather report. His phone buzzed. A message from his sister. "If we're all going to die tomorrow, want to get barbecue tonight?" He typed back, "Sure, might as well." Commander Valve stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the data streams from Earth communication networks. His tactical officer had been monitoring human responses for the past hour, and the reports made no sense. "They are not mobilizing military forces?" Valve asked. "No, Commander. Some defensive positions have been established, but there is no coordinated response. Instead, they appear to be creating digital images mocking your appearance and our fleet design." Valve pulled up one of the intercepted images. It showed his face photoshopped onto the body of a small Earth creature called a thumb. The caption read something about his mother and a squid. He didn't understand it, but he understood it was meant as an insult. "This is their defense?" he asked. "Mockery?" "It appears so, Commander." In hundreds of previous invasions, the vast Dominion had encountered every possible response. Immediate surrender, desperate last stands, cunning ambush, religious fervor, mass panic. But never this. Never an entire planet that seemed to treat the end of their civilization as an opportunity for entertainment. "Continue monitoring," Valve ordered. "They will break. Fear will set in. They always break." But as the hours passed, Earth did not break. Instead, humanity did what it did best. It turned everything into content. News channels brought on experts who were actually just science fiction authors. One major network aired a 2-hour special analyzing the alien ship design with commentary from video. Game developers who critiqued the poor aesthetic choices. In Tokyo, someone organized a flash mob under one of the ships. Thousands gathered to perform a synchronized dance routine. In London, a food truck appeared near the mothership selling doomsday burgers. The line stretched for 3 blocks. Minho's stream had evolved into a watch party, where he and several other content creators provided live commentary on the invasion like it was a sporting event. They took viewer questions, made predictions about what would happen next, and occasionally went outside to film the mothership from different angles. "The underside is definitely the worst part," Minho said, pointing his camera upward. "Like, if you're going to invade a planet, at least make your ship look cool from all angles." "This is just lazy design," his co-host agreed. "It's giving, I didn't study for the exam, so I just drew a rectangle and called it a spaceship." 6 hours had passed since the ultimatum. 18 hours remained, and humanity had spent most of that time doing absolutely nothing productive except finding new and creative ways to disrespect their would-be conquerors. Dr. G1 had filled 3 whiteboards with equations. She was close to something. The shield frequency was measurable, predictable, and potentially exploitable. But she needed more data, and she needed people to take her seriously. She picked up her phone and called the National Emergency Hotline. After 45 minutes on hold, listening to classical music, she gave up and posted her findings on Reddit instead. The post was titled, "I think I found a weakness in the alien shields. Serious." Within minutes, it had 500 upvotes and counting. Somewhere on the other side of the world, in a garage in Detroit, a man named Sunho read that post and had an idea. He looked at the pile of electric car parts scattered around his workspace and started doing calculations in his head. The clock ticked forward. Earth continued to meme. The aliens continued to wait. And in the chaos of humanity's ridiculous response, something was beginning to form. Not a plan, exactly. Not yet. But the seeds of one, scattered across 1,000 minds who were paying attention while everyone else laughed. The 24 hours had only just begun. Hour 7 arrived with no signs of panic. If anything, Earth seemed to be settling into a strange carnival atmosphere. Cities that should have been evacuating were instead throwing viewing parties. Commander Valve reviewed the intelligence reports with growing confusion. His analysts had compiled a list of human activities in response to the invasion. The list included block parties, merchandise sales, amateur comedy shows, and something called a browser game that had been downloaded 50 million times in 6 hours. "Show me this game," Valve commanded. The tactical officer pulled it up on the main screen. It was called Alien Invasion Simulator, and it had been coded by a programmer in Japan named Daiki. The game was simple, crude even, but effective. Players controlled tiny ships trying to invade Earth, while human defenses shot them down with increasingly absurd weapons. Valve watched as the game's alien ships, clearly modeled after his own fleet, were destroyed by everything from giant hammers to trained pigeons to something labeled weaponized pizza delivery. Each defeat triggered a mocking message. "This is what they think of us," Valve said quietly. "It appears so, Commander." "Have any governments responded to our ultimatum?" "Several have issued statements. Most are calling for calm. The United Nations has scheduled an emergency session, but there has been no formal surrender, no military response, and no indication they are taking the threat seriously." Valve had conquered 43 worlds. He had seen civilizations crumble at the mere sight of his fleet. He had watched planetary leaders weep as they signed surrender documents. But he had never seen this. Complete, total disrespect wrapped in humor. "Perhaps they do not believe we will follow through," his second officer suggested. "Should we demonstrate our weapons? Destroy an uninhabited area to prove our capability?" Valve considered it. Standard doctrine called for a show of force if the enemy failed to respond appropriately. But something stopped him. These humans were bizarre, unpredictable. A show of force might finally trigger their survival instincts, or might just give them more material to mock. "Not yet," he decided. "We wait. Fear will come." While the vast Dominion waited for fear that never came, a different kind of response was forming in the shadows of Earth's chaos. Hana sat in her apartment in Seoul, surrounded by 6 monitors and enough computer equipment to run a small data center. She was the unofficial leader of a hacker collective that operated across 18 countries. They had spent the past 7 hours doing what they did best, breaking into systems they weren't supposed to access. In this case, the system was the alien communication network. "It's almost embarrassing how easy this is," she typed into her encrypted chat. "They're not even using basic encryption." Responses flooded in from her team members around the world. "Confirmed. They're broadcasting everything in the clear. I've mapped the network structure. It's sophisticated but completely open. Found their command frequencies. Want me to try injecting a signal?" Hana considered it. They could probably cause some havoc, maybe even crash a few systems. But that would alert the aliens to their presence. Better to watch, learn, and wait for the right moment. "No interference yet," she typed. "Just observe and map everything. We might need this later." While Hana worked in Seoul, Sunho stood in his garage in Detroit, staring at the prototype he had built. It didn't look like much. A mess of wires, capacitors, and modified Tesla, TTERY cells all connected to a control circuit he had soldered together using a design based on Dr. G1's Reddit post. The post had gone viral in certain communities. Amateur scientists, engineers, and anyone with technical knowledge had descended on it, validating her math, suggesting improvements, and sharing their own calculations. It was like a global science project, except the goal was figuring out how to disable alien shields instead of building a volcano for a school fair. Sunho's garage had become ground zero for the practical application of those theories. He had the parts, the knowledge, and just enough crazy to actually try building the thing. He pressed the power button. The device hummed to life, energy readings climbing on his makeshift monitor. The electromagnetic pulse generator was working. It was crude, probably unstable, and definitely not legal by any standard definition, but it was working. He took a video, posted it to the thread, and watched as dozens of engineers around the world started replicating his design. If this actually works, he muttered to himself, I'm either going to be a hero or I'm going to blow up my garage. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Is this Sunho? A woman's voice asked. She had a Korean accent. Who is this? My name is Hana. I saw your video. We need to talk. Dr. G1 had given up on official channels. Her calls to government agencies went nowhere. Her emails to military contacts disappeared into bureaucratic black holes. So she did what any modern scientist would do. She went on social media and started a live stream. Within minutes, she had 10,000 viewers. By the time she finished explaining her shield frequency theory, she had 500,000. The flicker you see in the background of Commander Val's transmission is not random, she explained, using a laser pointer on her whiteboard. It follows a pattern. Every 2.3 seconds, the shield drops to approximately 60% power for exactly 40 milliseconds. This suggests a refresh cycle in their energy generation system. Comments flooded in. Most were supportive, some were skeptical, and a few were just people saying she was hot, which she ignored. If we can time an electromagnetic pulse to hit during that refresh cycle, at the exact frequency of their shield harmonics, we could theoretically cause a cascade failure. The shield wouldn't just flicker. It would collapse entirely for at least several seconds. A comment appeared from someone claiming to be a Swiss military analyst. Dr. Park, we've been monitoring your work. Can you hold for a call from my superior? Finally, she thought. Someone official was paying attention. Lieutenant Hyan returned from his scheduled patrol to find his commanding officer waiting for him. We need to talk about what's happening in the civilian sector, the colonel said. Hyan expected a reprimand. Instead, his commander pulled up a series of reports. They detailed Dr. Jiwan's research, Sunho's prototype devices, and a growing network of civilians who were apparently organizing some kind of coordinated response to the invasion. Is this real? The colonel asked. Can they actually disable the shields? Hyan read through the technical reports. He wasn't a scientist, but he understood enough to see the logic. It was insane, absolutely insane, but the math looked solid. I don't know, sir, but it's more than our military has come up with. Exactly. Which is why Command wants us to prepare tactical support. If the civilians manage to drop even one shield, we need to be ready to strike immediately. For the first time since the invasion began, Hyan felt something other than amused disbelief. He felt hope. Strange, absurd hope based on Reddit posts and garage engineering, but hope nonetheless. Hour 12 arrived. Commander Valth issued his second warning. This time, he was more forceful, more direct. He listed the weapons at his disposal. He showed footage of previous conquests. He gave humanity 12 more hours to comply. The response was immediate and predictable. Within minutes, the hashtag only 12 hours left was trending worldwide. People posted bucket lists, mostly joking ones. 12 hours left, and I still haven't learned. Spanish. 12 hours left, and I'm spending it watching cat videos. 12 hours left, and I'm stuck in a Zoom meeting. Minho did another live stream, this time from a rooftop with the mothership visible behind him. His viewer count had climbed to 200 million people from every country on Earth. So here's what I'm thinking, he said to his camera. What if we just fly a drone up there? Like, what are they going to do? Shoot down a $50 toy? His chat exploded with encouragement. People started sending him donations to buy the best drone possible. Within an hour, he had enough money to buy a top-of-the-line commercial drone and outfit it with LED lights that he programmed to spell out "Sup nerds" in bright blue letters. If I die doing this, Minho announced, I want my tombstone to say he died for the content. He launched the drone at hour 14. 200 million people watched it climb toward the massive alien ship. Commander Valve's point defense systems tracked it briefly, analyzed it as non-threatening, and ignored it. The drone passed through the shield without any resistance. Minho guided it closer to the hull, close enough that his camera could make out individual details of the ship's surface. That's when he saw them. Thousands of small vents covering the hull, probably for cooling or atmosphere regulation. "Chat, are you seeing this?" he asked, zooming in on the vents. "Why do they have so many exposed openings? That seems like a design flaw." He didn't know it yet, but that observation, that simple question asked by a streamer trying to entertain his audience, would change everything. Because watching that stream were Dr. Ji-won, Hannah, Sunho, Lieutenant Hyan, and thousands of others who were paying attention while the world laughed. And they all had the same thought at the same moment. If drones could pass through the shields, they could deliver anything directly to the hull. And if those vents were necessary for the ship's operation, they were also vulnerabilities. The pieces were coming together. Scattered hour 15 marked the turning point, though nobody realized it at the time. Minho's drone footage had been shared across every social media platform on Earth. Scientists paused their calculations to watch it. Military strategists studied every frame. Hannah's hacker collective downloaded the raw video files and analyzed them for useful intelligence. But it was a teenager in Brazil who first spotted something crucial. She slowed down the footage to 1/4 speed and noticed that when Minho's drone passed through the shield, there was a brief shimmer effect, but the shield itself never activated any defensive response. She posted her observation with a simple question: why do the shields ignore small objects? Dr. Ji-won saw the post during a brief break from her calculations. She stopped, coffee cup halfway to her mouth, and stared at her screen. Of course, the alien shields were designed to stop missiles, energy weapons, and large projectiles. They probably had a mass threshold to avoid wasting power on space debris or small particles. Drones fell below that threshold. She immediately called the Swiss military liaison, who had finally started taking her seriously. "We need to revise the plan," she said without preamble. "We don't need to disable the shields to deliver weapons. We need to deliver weapons and then disable the shields so our militaries can follow up." There was silence on the other end of the line as the implications sank in. "How many drones would we need?" the liaison finally asked. "Thousands. Tens of thousands. Every commercial drone we can get our hands on, each one carrying an EMP device." "That's impossible. We don't have the resources to build that many devices, let alone coordinate their deployment." Ji-won smiled grimly. "You don't, but the internet does." She ended the call and opened her live stream again. This time, she wasn't just sharing her research. She was asking for help. Within 3 hours, her broadcast reached every continent. Engineers shared her message in 100 languages. The technical specifications for Sunho's EMP design spread like wildfire, simplified and optimized by thousands of contributors. In Bangalore, a robotics lab started converting their industrial drones. In Mexico City, a collective of makers pooled their resources. In Cairo, in Sydney, in Lagos, in Jakarta, people who had spent the day making memes suddenly had a purpose that felt real. Hannah coordinated the technical side. Her hacker collective built a synchronization network that would allow all the drones to fire their EMP devices at exactly the same moment. It was held together with digital duct tape and prayer, using everything from satellite internet to old-fashioned ham radios, but the math worked. She connected with Sunho through an encrypted video call. "Can you build more of your devices?" she asked. Sunho looked around his garage, which had become a makeshift factory. His neighbors were helping now, assembling components on folding tables set up in his driveway. We've built 30 so far. We can make more, but we need parts. Lots of parts. I'll send you coordinates. There are 19 other build sites across North America, all making the same thing. They'll share components. Sunho shook his head in disbelief. This is insane. 3 days ago, I was fixing cars. Now I'm building weapons to fight aliens, based on plans from Reddit. Welcome to the Resistance, Hana said with a slight smile. It's exactly as stupid as it sounds. Lieutenant Hyan sat in a briefing room with officers from 6 different countries, connected via secure video conference. A general from the United States was speaking, her voice tense. Let me make sure I understand this correctly. Our military strategy now depends on a live streamer from Seoul, a physicist giving lectures on social media, and thousands of civilians building electromagnetic pulse devices in their garages? A Korean colonel responded. That is correct, General. And according to our analysis, it's the best chance we have. This is absurd. Yes, but it might work. The general rubbed her temples. Fine. What do you need from us? Tactical support. When and if the civilian operation succeeds in dropping the shields, we need every military force on Earth ready to strike simultaneously. Missiles, railguns, everything we have. Hayam pulled up a map showing drone deployment zones around the world. Over 50,000 drones, each one equipped with a homemade EMP device, all coordinated through a network built by hackers and hobby programmers. The synchronization happens at hour 22, Hyan explained. That gives us 2 hours before the ultimatum expires. If we succeed, the shields drop for approximately 8 to 12 seconds based on Dr. Ji-won's calculations. That's our window. And if we fail, then we'll have spent Earth's last day building toys and making memes. At least we'll die consistent with our brand. Nobody laughed. The absurdity had finally given way to grim reality. Commander Valve watched the developments on Earth with a mixture of fascination and growing concern. His intelligence officers had finally pieced together what the humans were attempting. They're organizing a coordinated attack using civilian technology, his tactical officer reported. Small aerial drones, carrying electromagnetic pulse devices, synchronized through their civilian communication networks. Can they actually penetrate our shields? The drones can. They're below our defensive threshold. But their weapons are primitive. Even if they successfully deploy electromagnetic pulses, our shields should withstand them. Val studied the data. Should withstand. That word bothered him. What is the probability of success for their plan? The tactical officer ran calculations. Less than 3%, Commander. Their coordination would need to be perfect, the timing exact, and even then, our shields are designed to resist much more powerful electromagnetic attacks. 3%, Valve repeated. On any other world, he would dismiss such odds without concern. But Earth had already proven itself unlike any other world. They had turned an invasion into a comedy show, organized resistance through entertainment platforms, and somehow convinced millions of civilians to build weapons. Increase power to shields, he ordered, and prepare point defense systems to target drones. All of them. Sir, there are tens of thousands of drones. If we target them all, we'll drain our weapon systems. Do it anyway. I'm not taking chances with these humans. Minho read the message from Hannah 3 times to make sure he understood it correctly. She wanted him to coordinate drone deployment zones in Seoul using his platform. Him, a guy who played video games and made jokes for a living. But his current viewer count was 300 million and climbing. His stream had become the unofficial hub for invasion coverage. People trusted him, or at least they found him entertaining enough to keep watching. Okay, chat, listen up, he said, switching to a serious tone that felt foreign on his tongue. This is real now. In 7 hours, we're going to try something that's either going to save the world or accomplish absolutely nothing. Either way, we're going to try. He pulled up the coordination map Hana had sent him. Seoul was divided into sectors, each one assigned a specific number of drones and a specific deployment time. If you have a drone, any drone, check the link in the description. There's a form. Fill it out. Someone will contact you with a device and instructions. If you're in Seoul and you want to help, this is how. Similar messages were going out from streamers and influencers around the world. The response was overwhelming. People who had spent 15 hours making jokes suddenly wanted to do something, anything, to fight back. In London, a food truck owner who had been selling doomsday burgers closed up shop and donated his commercial drone to the effort. In Tokyo, the flash mob organizers redirected their coordination skills to mapping deployment zones. In New York, the person who had projected the middle finger emoji onto the mothership showed up at a build site with a van full of batteries. The carnival atmosphere didn't disappear entirely. People still made jokes, still laughed, still coped with fear through humor. But underneath it all, something had shifted. Humanity had found its spine, even if that spine was made of Wi-Fi signals and homemade electronics. Dr. Ji-won hadn't slept in 20 hours. Her laboratory had become a command center, filled with volunteers helping her refine calculations and test scenarios. The Swiss military liaison was now camped out in her office, coordinating with defense forces worldwide. "We have a problem," one of her graduate students said, pointing at a simulation on screen. "The synchronization needs to be accurate within 10 milliseconds. That's possible for a dozen drones, maybe 100. But 50,000? Network lag alone could throw off our timing." Ji-won stared at the numbers. The student was right. Even with Hana's impressive coordination network, they couldn't guarantee that level of precision across the entire globe. "What if we don't synchronize them all at once?" she said slowly. "What if we do it in waves? Start with the drones closest to the ships, create the initial cascade failure, then follow up with the outer rings?" Her student ran the calculations. It could work. The shield collapse should propagate across the entire vessel if we hit it hard enough in the first wave. But we'd need the outer waves to fire within 2 seconds of the first wave, or the shields might recover. 2 seconds we can do. 50,000 drones firing in coordinated waves over 2 seconds. She looked at the liaison. "Can your people handle that?" Hour 22 arrived with sunrise in Tokyo and midnight in New York. The timing was deliberate. Dr. Ji-won had calculated that attacking when the planet was split between day and night would make it harder for the aliens to coordinate a response across all their ships simultaneously. Minho stood on his rooftop in Seoul, camera pointed at the mothership hanging in the sky above the city. His usual upbeat energy was gone, replaced by quiet tension. 350 million people were watching his stream. Behind him, 57 drones sat in neat rows, each one carrying Sunho's EMP device. Volunteers he had never met before today operated them, waiting for his signal. "1 minute," he said softly. Around the world, identical scenes played out. Rooftops, parking lots, open fields, all filled with drones and people who had decided that dying while fighting was better than dying while laughing. Dr. Ji-won sat in her laboratory, eyes locked on 3 different screens. One showed her synchronization timer. One displayed data feeds from Hana's network. One streamed Minho's broadcast. Her hands shook slightly as she hovered over the keyboard. 30 seconds. She announced into her headset. All stations confirm ready status. Responses flooded in from coordinators on every continent. Ready, ready. Hana's fingers flew across her keyboard in Seoul. making last-second adjustments to the network. She had built this coordination system in less than a day, using parts of existing infrastructure she definitely didn't have permission to access. It was held together with code that would make any professional programmer weep, but it worked. 20 seconds. Lieutenant Hyan sat in his cockpit, jet engines warm and ready. His entire squadron was airborne, circling at a safe distance from the alien ships. Every military force on Earth was doing the same thing, waiting, hoping, praying that a plan built on Reddit posts and live streams would actually work. 10 seconds. Sunho watched from his garage in Detroit, where his neighbors had gathered around a laptop to watch the streams. He thought about the device he had built, now replicated 50,000 times across the planet. It had seemed like a fun project at first, a way to feel useful during the apocalypse. Now everything depended on whether his garage engineering actually worked. 5 seconds. Commander Valve's tactical officer shouted a warning. "Commander, we're detecting massive drone activity worldwide. Tens of thousands of small craft launching simultaneously. Deploy point defenses," Valve ordered. "Shoot them down." "Sir, there are too many. We can't target them all. Then target as many as possible." The countdown reached 0. Dr. Jiwan pressed enter. Across Earth, 50,000 drones rose into the sky. They came in waves, exactly as planned. The first wave consisted of drones within 1 kilometer of the alien vessels, approximately 8,000 units. They climbed rapidly, their electric motors nearly silent, LED lights bright against the dawn and darkness. The alien point defense systems opened fire. Beams of energy lanced through the sky, vaporizing drones by the dozen. But for every drone destroyed, 10 more kept coming. The aliens had designed their defenses to stop missiles and fighters, not swarms of cheap civilian aircraft that cost less than a nice dinner. Minho watched through his drone's camera as it approached the mothership over Seoul. Explosions lit up the sky around him as other drones were destroyed. His hands were steady on the controls, guiding his craft through the chaos. "Almost there?" he whispered to his audience. The first wave of drones reached their targets. They positioned themselves against the hulls of the alien ships, right next to the cooling vents that Minho had discovered during his earlier flight. 57 in Seoul, 93 in Tokyo, 111 in New York, hundreds more in cities around the world. Dr. Jiwan watched her screen and spoke one word into her headset. "Fire." 8,000 electromagnetic pulse devices activated simultaneously. They weren't powerful individually. Each one was just a homemade gadget built from car parts and consumer electronics. But together, timed to hit during the shield's refresh cycle at exactly the frequency Dr. Jiwan had calculated. They created a cascade effect. The shields around the alien vessels flickered, stuttered, and collapsed. Not all of them. Not everywhere. But on 17 of the 83 ships worldwide, the shields dropped completely for 9.3 seconds. Lieutenant Hyan heard the confirmation through his radio and didn't hesitate. "All wings, weapons free. Fire everything." Missiles launched from jets circling the mothership over Seoul. Similar strikes happened, simultaneously in every city where the shields had fallen. Years of human weapons development, all the missiles and railguns and energy weapons that Commander Valve had dismissed as primitive, all focused on 17 exposed targets. The impacts were devastating. Hulls that had been protected by advanced shields suddenly faced direct hits. Explosions blossomed across the surface of the ships. Secondary detonations followed as weapons struck critical systems. Commander Valve's bridge shook violently. Alarms screamed from every console. His tactical officer clutched his station to stay upright. "Shields are regenerating," the officer shouted. "But we've taken heavy damage." Hull breaches on decks 7 through 14. Main power systems fluctuating. How? Valve demanded. How did they coordinate this? Sir, they're using civilian communication networks. Social media platforms, streaming services, messaging applications. We didn't monitor those channels because we assumed they were irrelevant to military operations. Valve pulled up a feed showing one of the human streamers. The young man, Minho, was cheering as his camera showed the alien ship burning above Seoul. 350 million humans were watching with him, celebrating. Fire on the cities, Valve ordered. Show them the price of resistance. Sir, that will only do it. The second wave of drones launched while the first wave's destruction still rained from the sky. 15,000 more craft rose to replace the 8,000 destroyed. But now the aliens knew what they were facing. Point defense systems recalibrated, shields reinforced, and tactical officers prepared for the new assault. Hana saw the aliens adapting in real time through her intercepted communications. They were learning fast. We need to hit them harder, she said into her network. Third wave, launch now. Don't wait for the second wave to finish. The plan had called for 3 waves spaced 30 seconds apart. Instead, Hana compressed it. Wave 2 and 3 would hit almost simultaneously, overwhelming the alien defenses before they could fully adapt. Sunho's garage-built devices performed beyond anyone's expectations. The electromagnetic pulses didn't just disrupt the shields. They interfered with the aliens' targeting systems, their communications, even their life support on some ships. It was an accident of design, an unintended side effect of using such crude technology. But it worked. More shields fell. Not as many as the first time, but enough. Lieutenant Hyan and pilots like him across the globe pressed their attacks. Ships that had seemed invincible hours ago were now burning, listing, some even beginning to fall from the sky. But the vast Dominion fleet was not helpless. Their weapons began firing on population centers. Energy beams carved through buildings. Missiles struck infrastructure. In Lagos, in Mumbai, in Sao Paulo, people died by the thousands. Minho saw the destruction through his camera feeds. His celebration died in his throat as he watched a beam weapon slice through downtown Seoul, turning 3 city blocks into molten rubble. We need to end this, he said quietly. His audience had grown to 400 million. Fourth wave, everyone who still has a working drone, launch now. All of them. Everything we have. It wasn't in the plan. Dr. Jiwon hadn't calculated a fourth wave. But Minho's message spread through every stream, every chat, every coordination channel. People who had been holding drones in reserve, people who hadn't been assigned to any wave, everyone launched. 27,000 drones rose into the sky in an uncoordinated mass. It was chaos. It was the opposite of the careful planning that had brought them this far. But it was also very human. Commander Valve watched his tactical display as the new swarm approached. His point defenses were already overtaxed. His shields were recovering but still weak. And now this. All ships, Emergency Protocol 7, he ordered. Prepare for emergency jump to faster-than-light travel. Sir, we can't abandon the invasion. Watch me. Dr. Jiwon saw what Minho had done and made a split-second decision. If they were going to throw everything at the aliens anyway, she might as well make it count. All stations, synchronize pulse, she commanded. Every remaining device fires on my mark, aimed at the flagship. Hana adjusted the network, redirecting the chaotic swarm toward a single target. Commander Valve's command ship, already damaged from the first assault, now became the focus of humanity's desperate final push. Mark, Jiwon said. 27,000 drones, most carrying nothing more than modified car parts and dreams, delivered their payloads to a single ship. The electromagnetic cascade was visible from space, a pulse of energy that made the ship's shields collapse like wet paper. Lieutenant Hyan had one missile left. He locked onto the flagship's exposed main reactor and fired without hesitation. The missile struck true. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the flagship's core reactor destabilized. The explosion started small and grew rapidly, consuming the ship from inside. Secondary explosions followed, and then the entire of Part 5, the 24th hour, the alien ships were gone. But the sky above Earth still glowed with the fires they had left behind. Debris from destroyed vessels rained down across 6 continents. Cities burned. Emergency services struggled to reach survivors trapped under rubble. The victory felt hollow in the face of so much destruction. Minho sat on his rooftop, camera still running, but pointed at the ground now instead of the sky. His viewer count had dropped to 200 million. People were leaving to help with rescue efforts, to find their families, to process what had just happened. "I don't know what to say," he admitted to his remaining audience. "We won, but it doesn't feel like winning." In Lagos, an entire neighborhood was gone, erased by an alien energy weapon in the final minutes of the battle. In Mumbai, fires raged through 3 districts. Snow Paulo had lost its entire downtown core. The death toll was climbing past 1 million and showed no signs of stopping, but humanity had survived. And more importantly, it had fought back. Lieutenant Hyan landed his fighter at Osan Air Base and climbed out on shaking legs. His squadron had lost 4 pilots. Good people he had trained with, flown with, made jokes with in the ready room. They had died so that the rest of Earth could live. Ground crew rushed to his aircraft, already preparing it for another sortie in case the aliens returned. But Hyan knew they wouldn't. He had seen the panic in their retreat, the way they had abandoned their formation and jumped to faster-than-light travel without coordination. The vast Dominion had fled in fear, from humans, from a planet they had expected to conquer in hours. His phone buzzed with messages from his sister. She was alive. Her neighborhood had been spared. She wanted to know if he needed anything, if he was okay, if the world was really safe now. He typed back a simple response. "I think so. But it's going to take a long time to fix this." Dr. G1 stood in her laboratory, staring at screens full of data from the battle. Her calculations had worked. Her theory about the shield frequencies had been correct. But 57% of the drones in the first wave had been destroyed before reaching their targets. She had known there would be casualties, but seeing the numbers made it real. The Swiss military liaison approached her carefully. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week, which was accurate. "Dr. Park," he said gently, "the UN Security Council wants to speak with you. They're forming a committee to study what happened today and develop a permanent defense strategy." She laughed, the sound bitter and tired. "A committee? Of course they are. You saved the world today. I helped save it. Thousands of people saved it. Most of them will never get any recognition because they were just random citizens building things in their garages or flying drones from their rooftops." She gestured at her screens. This wasn't a military victory. It was a collective accident that happened to work. Does that make it less valuable? G1 considered the question. No, I suppose it doesn't. In Detroit, Sunho's garage had become an impromptu celebration site. His neighbors brought food and drinks. Someone set up speakers playing music. But the mood was strange, caught between relief and grief. They had won, but what had they lost? Sunho sat on his workbench, surrounded by the leftover parts from his MP devices. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. News agencies wanted interviews. The military wanted technical specifications. Random people wanted to thank him or blame him or ask him to autograph pieces of destroyed drones. He ignored all of it and watched Minho's stream instead. The young Korean streamer had moved on from his rooftop and was now broadcasting from a shelter, helping distribute supplies to people who had lost their homes. Hundreds of other streamers were doing the same thing, using their platforms to coordinate relief efforts. The carnival had become a community. The memes had become mutual aid. Humanity was still being absurd, but now the absurdity served a purpose. Hana sat in her apartment, fingers still dancing across her keyboard, even though the battle was over. She was documenting everything. Every piece of code she had written, every network vulnerability she had exploited, every coordination protocol her collective had developed. If the aliens came back, humanity would need to be ready. Her encrypted chat was filled with messages from her team. They were exhausted, traumatized, and proud in equal measure. A programmer in Stockholm had cried for an hour after the fleet jumped away. A network specialist in Nairobi had immediately started drinking and hadn't stopped. A systems analyst in Beijing had gone completely silent, but they had done it. A loose network of hackers who had never met in person had coordinated a global military operation using infrastructure they had basically stolen. It was the greatest and most illegal achievement of Hana's life. She posted one final message to her collective. Good work, everyone. Get some rest. And maybe don't mention this to any law enforcement. The 24th hour began with no alien ships in the sky. Commander Valve's ultimatum expired unheeded, meaningless now that his fleet had retreated. Earth had called his bluff, though in the strangest way possible. Around the world, governments tried to regain control of the narrative. Press conferences were held. Official statements released. Politicians took credit for the victory, while carefully avoiding any mention of how the victory had actually been achieved. But the internet remembered. Millions of people had watched the battle happen in real time through Minho's stream and dozens like it. They had seen civilians organize the defense while governments held emergency meetings. They had watched garage engineers build weapons while military contractors offered nothing. They had witnessed a victory that belonged to no nation, no organization, no official structure. It belonged to everyone and no one. A collective achievement by a species that specialized in chaotic cooperation. Man-Ho finally ended his stream after 18 straight hours of broadcasting. His last words to his audience were simple. Thank you for watching. Thank you for helping. Thank you for being ridiculous enough to think we can actually do this. I'm going to sleep for 3 days now. He signed off to applause from 200 million people. Dr. G1 did accept the invitation to speak with the UN Security Council, but only because they agreed to include Hana, Sunho, Lieutenant Hyen, and Minho in the discussion. If they wanted to understand what had happened, they needed to hear from the people who had actually made it happen. The meeting was scheduled for 3 days later, which would give everyone time to process, rest, and mourn. In the meantime, Earth began the long process of counting its dead, rebuilding its cities, and figuring out what came next. 3 months later, the scars were still visible. Construction crews worked around the clock in damaged cities. Memorials appeared in every place that had been struck by alien weapons. The death toll had stabilized at 1.3 million, a number that felt both impossibly large and miraculously small. Commander Valve stood before the vast Dominion High Council. Presenting his report on the failed invasion of Earth, he explained how the humans had weaponized mockery, coordinated military resistance through entertainment platforms, and defeated his fleet using civilian technology. The council listened in silence. When he finished, the head counselor spoke. You are telling us that a primitive species with no unified government, no advanced weapons, and no military coordination defeated our invasion fleet using toys and social media? Yes, High Counselor. And your recommendation? Earth should be classified as a prohibited world. Do not engage under any circumstances. The humans are unpredictable, irrational, and impossibly stubborn. They will turn anything into a weapon, including their own dysfunction. The council debated for hours whether to believe him or execute him for incompetence. Eventually, they chose belief. Earth was added to a very short list of worlds the vast Dominion would never approach again. On Earth, the UN had established the Global Defense Initiative, a permanent organization dedicated to planetary protection. Dr. Jiwan led the scientific division. Hannah ran cybersecurity, though her official position didn't mention that she also maintained contact with every hacker collective on the planet. Sunho consulted on weapons development, splitting his time between government contracts and his garage in Detroit. Lieutenant Hyan trained new pilots in unconventional warfare tactics, with a special emphasis on coordinating with civilian assets. In his briefing room, there was still a framed meme showing the alien mothership labeled Flying Packing Garage. Minho went back to streaming, though his content had changed. He still played games and made jokes, but he also raised money for reconstruction efforts and interviewed survivors. His platform had become a bridge between entertainment and activism. His latest video, rating alien invasion movies based on accuracy, had 300 million views. In his review of Independence Day, he gave it a 4 out of 10. Points for the coordinated global response, he said to his camera. But they made it look way too organized. In reality, we won because someone in Brazil noticed a thing. Someone in Korea flew a drone at the ship for fun. And someone in Detroit built a weapon in his garage using YouTube tutorials. That's not a Hollywood script. That's just humanity being humanity. His audience, now permanently numbered in the hundreds of millions,